The Prime Minister of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Dr. Ralph Gonsalves, and he'll be followed by his Antiguan counterpart, Mr. Gaston Brown.
I'm opposed to selling the passports and the citizenship in principle. I'm opposed on the grounds of practicality. I'm opposed on the grounds that it is not sustainable and that it is reckless to run your country's finances on selling passport and citizenship. No. You see the Americans under President Trump saying that has to come to an end. Yeah, Canada is the same thing. Britain, they start to say they're taking away, you have to apply for visa now from certain of those countries. And the Europeans now have put it inside of their parliament. Parliamentary committee in the European Union, Parliament has already addressed that question. It's going through the parliamentary process. It's just a matter of time. I saw it coming. It took a little longer because they give them some time to clean up. But I know that the money is so sweet for everybody. They weren't going to do any cleanup. Because if you really clean up, there's not a lot of money. There are so many corrupt practices involved in what I'm talking about. These companies will figure out that they might have 2 to 3 years. They're mistaken, but they figure out that they might have 2 to 3 years. And what they will do, they will sell as many as they can, as fast as they can. Which means more vagabonds will come in. More corrupt people will come in. More money launderers will come in. More people affecting our security will come in. Because they will not be able to do the checks properly, because they want to sell as many as they can, as fast as they can. And already, even those countries who's trying to do the checks, they have a problem with those checks. With checking out. What about, and I'm talking about some of the lawyers and some of the accountants and wannabe agents. They now will want to thief as much as they can, as fast as they can. So speed is of the essence for both of them. And what is their oxygen? Money on your backs. By taking your passport, selling it, and you wouldn't be able to get into Europe, you wouldn't be able to get into Britain, you wouldn't be able to get into America. You hear what I'm telling you? I want you to listen to me very carefully.
First of all, I felt that Ralph's statement was unfortunate, and for somebody who I admire, especially his language skills, when it comes to good language, Ralph is not short of good language. And I think this was a deliberate and provocative attack on, member states within the OECS, his colleagues, and, as small, vulnerable countries, we always encourage leaders to stand in solidarity with each other, recognizing that, the same stick that beats the wild goat is the same one that will beat the tame. And I was a little shocked that Ralph could be so reckless with his language to treat of all of us with the same broad brush. And whereas I am not in a position to admit, or for that matter, deny any corruption in any other program, I can certainly speak to our program. And I want to say to Ralph definitively that the accusations that he made of corruption in these programs, which would have included Antigua and Barbuda, they certainly don't apply to our country. And I also want to say to Ralph that Antigua and Barbuda runs a legitimate investment immigration program that is no different than the EB-5. It's no different than the one in Canada. It's no different than those in the European Union. I also want to say to Ralph that we have not publish a single application without appropriate due diligence, which includes international due diligence agencies and regional institutions, global institutions, including Interpol and impacts here within the Caribbean region, or JRCC for that matter. So this notion that there's a lot of corruption and we are processing applications without due diligence and so on, I want to say certainly in the case of Antigua and Barbuda, your information is flawed. And even if, Ralph, you are speculating that there may be corruption in other programs, I do not appreciate your literally treating us with a broad brush and to implicate one of the best run investment immigration programs in the world, the Antiguan and Barbudan program, with the type of adjectives and mismanagement and corruption that you're talking about. And I would say to here, Ralph, I am aware that within St. Vincent and Grenadines, from time to time, you give people who make economic contributions, and we're talking about foreigners who make significant economic contributions, you give them citizenship. So, whereas in Antigua and Barbuda, we don't have that type of leverage within our constitution to make those people citizens. The C.I.P, on the other hand, gives us the opportunity to give people who make significant economic contributions via our C.I.P program citizenship. So it's no different from what you're doing. And I will never pass my place to go and accuse you of corruptly giving passports to the people who you have given passports to. It will be out of order, and it certainly would not be supporting camaraderie and comity among, two prime ministers within the region. So I don't know what issue or issues Ralph may have within St. Vincent and Grenadines. I don't know if it's an issue in which, political parties in St. Vincent and Grenadines are fighting on the issue of C.I.P. And I have a policy, I don't get involved in people's domestic politics. But if that is the case, keep that within St. Vincent and Grenadines. Don't implicate other countries within the region. I think you have gone too far, and you may want to reconsider whether or not you should not be a little more circumspect in your discussions and in your articulations in the future. And what is very unfortunate about this, we are trying to carve out a good living standard for the people of the region. Many of our countries have transitioned into immigration investment programs to raise additional revenues to take care of the obligations of our governments and to uplift our people. And these programs have made significant contributions to our development. I recall, for example, when we got in June of 2014, our country was literally on the precipice of bankruptcy. And it is the C.I.P revenues that rescued us, because at that time, 2 items of expenditure, namely salaries and wages and debt repayment, exhausted all of our revenues. And if it was not for the C.I.P program, that would have brought in just over 100 million EC dollars a year on average, or maybe an average of 100 million a year. So we would have collected about $1 billion, maybe 1.1 billion, because I think the first year we raised as much as $200 million in a given year. If it wasn't for that, the fortunes of Antigua and Barbuda would have been significantly different. Now, this idea about visa-free access, I don't know why Ralph believes that, the C.I.P countries will use visa-free access, and that St. Vincent and Grenadines will be able to retain visa-free access. At the end of the day, we're operating within the same space. And as I said before, the same stick that beats the wild goat is the same one that's going to beat the tame. To the best of my knowledge, St. Vincent and Grenadines has no visa-free access into Canada, but you have the C.I.P program. And why do you think that if the European Union were to revoke the visa-free access of the C.I.P OECS countries, why do you think that in St. Vincent and the Grenadines will continue into perpetuity? So what should be happening here together is that we should be supporting each other, because they may use C.I.P to stop our visa-free access, but they'll use some other reason to stop visa-free access into St. Vincent and the Grenadines. So it is not appropriate for Ralph to be trashing us with the hope that we lose our visa-free access. And by the way, no decision has been taken up to this point by the European Union, and even information too that somebody circulated about the US saying that they may not allow OECS Caribbean countries that have C.I.Ps access into the United States. No such decision has been taken. So that's not even reliable information that Ralph is peddling. And even if that was the case, we would expect some level of empathy, not ridicule coming from a colleague prime minister, senior prime minister who you all love and respect. And if it is that it is to satisfy your domestic base, it has gone beyond your base, it has reached our shores, and you are literally undermining the integrity of leaders, within the other countries, and you are undermining our states. In fact, what you're doing, Ralph, you're giving fodder to people external of the region to take punitive action against us. And in many instances, the information that I have is flawed because, we operate within a very hostile political space. And opposition parties, unfortunately, have made our C.I.P. programs the subject of battleground politics, and they make up all kind of stories. Every now and then, every immigration investment program in the world it would have some kind of crook involved in some kind of nefarious financial activity that would slip through the program. And what do you call this? You call this residual risk. No program is perfect. You think that the EB5 have not attracted a few people who would have slipped through the cracks, maybe been involved in financial impropriety. That has happened in the case of Antigua and Barbuda. And for the 12 years that we've been operating, we have had about 3 such individuals who have slipped through the program, including Choksi. Choksi, for example, he was able to get our citizenship because at the time when they did the due diligence, the information on his alleged plunder of the bank in India was not public. So he got a clean due diligence report. But subsequently, when the information broke, steps were taken to revoke his citizenship. And as you know, he's somewhere now in Belgium, and they're looking now to repatriate him to India. So, I felt that was an extremely unfortunate and irresponsible statement coming from Ralph. And you must respect the sovereign decision of these 4 countries. If you choose to have our C.I.P. program, that has nothing to do with you. You choose not to have one, we respect your decision.
Trump has one.
And look at the situation there, for example, with Trump. So why you don't say that the $5 million C.I.P. program that Trump is introducing is corrupt? How come intrinsically you're going to now point to your colleague programs and say they're corrupt? And look, even if there are abuses in these programs in the past, the reality is all of us have now come together. We are forming this regional regulatory body to regulate our programs. These programs have matured. And I will even accept that perhaps in some of the programs they may not have been as vigilant as they ought to, and maybe certain unfortunate things may have happened. But it's not that leaders in this region are intrinsically involved in any corruption and trying to facilitate corrupt players. And that's the implication of what Ralph would have said. Now, the fact that we've come together now and that we're harmonizing our programs and we're making sure that there's better cooperation and collaboration. The United States, for example, gave us 6 points that we introduced in our program to our respective programs in order to strengthen our programs. We're working with the European Union and the Brits. And having been involved in this level of international collaboration and cooperation to strengthen our programs, why would Ralph see fit to go there and to tear down our programs? It is totally inappropriate. And what I'll say here now, if the people in St. Vincent and Grenadines or the opposition for that matter, they believe that C.I.P. or having an investment immigration program will be a benefit to their country, they have a right so to do as well. You know, for Ralph to go and bully nobody and tell them what to do. But, Ralph, I hope we'll remain friends, because it's not the first time he did it, I remember when I was in opposition, I said something about C.I.P. I was promoting C.I.P. And I don't know who called him. It must be Harold Lovelock, and he and Harold used to be good at the time. And the man went and observed and rebutted me, And, I rebutted him. And we remain friends. So I hope now, having rebutted him on what I consider to have been a very irresponsible statement, that Ralph will remain my sustaining friend. I love your comrade. Yeah, look, whereas I can vouch for our program, and I can tell you that I've never been involved in any act of unintegrity with any C.I.P. citizen at any point in the history of the Labour Party operating the program. On the other hand, I'm not going to go there and berate other programs that may have had weaknesses, because I understand that, look, at the end of the day, we got to stand in solidarity with each other, that there has to be some comity among leaders within the region. It's not for us to exploit any gaps that we may see. If Ralph Adam probably went on the program and said, you know what, these programs need to be strengthened, and they need to XYZ, I would respect that. But you don't come and trash our program and call us corrupt. I think you pass your place, Ralph. You need to come better than that. Because how would you like, for example, if the 5 of us who have C.I.P. programs came and lash you and say that what you're doing is corrupt? How would you love that? But we're not going to go down that road. And I love you at the end of the day.